What's up, guys? Welcome back to Drums and Drams. Hope you're all having a wonderful holiday season and a happy new year. And with the new year comes some changes here on the channel, all of which I think are positive and exciting, going to push the channel in the right direction. And this video itself is actually one of the first changes you're going to see. This is sort of a weekly video update series that I'm going to start doing every Monday on Drums and Drams. We're calling it the Weekly Dram. And if you've heard that title before, that's because I did have a different series on the channel that I tried a few episodes of. It was like a news segment kind of show, and it just took so much production and effort to get those things right that I had to scrap it. And yes, that was called the Weekly Dram, but we're going to repurpose the name. So this is the new Weekly Dram. And again, it's going to be kind of this weekly update segment, pretty unedited, maybe entirely unedited. An opportunity for me to stay in touch with you a little bit more, the viewers of the channel, outside of the live stream context, which is a great way for us to interact, usually every week. Sometimes there are some weeks off, but this will be in a little bit of a different way. I'm going to have the chance to not only preview what's coming up in a given week. So I've, again, dropped these on Mondays. I can let you know what videos to expect that week. And in many cases, the goal is going to be to let you know even what days to expect them so I can keep myself honest on a release schedule. But outside of that, I'm also going to be able to kind of recap what happened the week before, ask you guys what you liked, what you didn't like, if you have any thoughts, comments, questions. As we get going through this, on that note of questions, if you ever have any whiskey questions or, this bottle versus this bottle comparison, drop them in the comments. And as we go week to week, I can answer those questions. I'll pick a few out each week. Again, a great way for us to stay in touch. And I'm really excited to kind of be able to do this, which is a little more casual. Probably minimal to no editing on these videos so I can get them out quickly. It'll be very stream of consciousness, but I do have some notes in front of me in case I get off topic. If you see me look down, that is what I'm referencing. So I think that's all I need to say at the beginning of this. The other thing is I will insert some tastings into some of these weekly Dram episodes. So this week is going to be George T. Stagg 2023. So we're going to talk about some things. I will taste George T. Stagg 2023. We'll talk about some bottles that I'm looking forward to snagging here, at least hopefully snagging in the next month or two. And that's going to do it for today's episode. So here we go. Weekly Dram. Number one, let me know what you guys think. The first thing to talk about very quickly is just kind of the madness that's been happening to the channel the last, 4 or 5 days at this point. I put out that Elijah Craig C923 laser code video. I put out a quick live stream the next day to kind of address some of the new information that came out, and it has blown the channel up. That was not my intention to stir the pot or I really could have never imagined the viewership and the subscriber numbers that would come from something like that. And please rest assured, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole of making this channel all about drama and rumors and stuff. But it was kind of an interesting thing that happened. I would call it an experiment, but it was completely unintentional. So anyways, those videos happened. It's been an interesting 5 days. I've been called every name under the sun in the comments section, but I've also had a lot of support throughout it as well. And I think that's the sign of, at least for me, when you have a lot of support, but you also have a lot of hate, I think you're doing something right to some degree. If everybody loves you, I don't think that's good. And if everybody hates you, that's certainly not good. So anyways, that has been an interesting debacle. And moving forward, I think I won't shy away from tough topics on the channel, but I'll definitely make sure I do my research. And a lot of people will misconstrue things that you say online. And so I'm going to be very certain about the way I state things so that I can't be as easily misrepresented as I was in those videos. But looking forward to what's coming up this week, starting tomorrow, Tuesday, January 2nd, I'm going to start dropping every day one video about my top 5 whiskeys of the year. So it's going to be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, counting down from Tuesday to Saturday. The bottles that you see on the table right now are the 9 bottles minus the George T. Stagg that I whittled down a pool of about 30 bottles. I whittled it down to these 9, and these are the ones that I still have to taste through against each other tonight in preparation for making that batch of videos. So each day is going to feature one of those, counting down again, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm curious to see what's going to come out on top here. A lot of classic choices, a lot of interesting choices. And the way that I did kind of, taste through these was I just did a massive live stream this past Thursday. You can check it out. It was like 4 hours and 15 minutes long. I can't promise that it's all entertaining. It did go off the rails a little bit. There's a lot of whiskey to taste and an interesting experiment at the very least for me to go through that process and again narrow it down to this. And just as a kind of disclaimer, I guess, my top 5 whiskeys of the year is not all inclusive. I've tasted very little of what's come out this year when you look at the market, you know, as a whole unit. Very little BTAC, none of the Pappies. You know, so when you start looking at my list and you wonder, why isn't this there? Or what's going on here? Number one, understand that it's only related to the bottles I own and some of the samples that I had left laying around. I did include samples, and I am including single barrels. Whatever, it is what it is. Because number two is that you shouldn't take my list very seriously. I mean, it's my favorite, my top 5 bottles based on my certain criteria, which in this case is like, could I put the bottle down? If so, it's probably not a top 5. But if it's something I couldn't stop drinking, that counts for something. Concentration of flavor, I care a lot about. You know, just a great tasting whiskey for whatever style it is. All of those things, balance, palate development, these are the things that I really, really care about. And so my list might be vastly different than someone else's. So just understand those two things, that I didn't get to taste everything this year, of course, and also that it's a highly subjective and weird system, and I'm not going through it by ranking things by number. But that's what's going to come out this week. And then after that list ends on Saturday, Sunday's going to roll around. We're going to have another Scotch Sunday video. This week is going to be the Macallan 12-year Sherry Oak, which is kind of a classic bottle, a little overpriced, but I don't want to spoil anything, so stay tuned for that. We are now doing Scotch reviews on Drums and Drams for now every Sunday, but they'll probably make some more appearances on live streams. And, you know, if people want more Scotch content and those Sunday reviews start getting a little more viewership, it would be a great thing to be able to record some more Scotch videos as well. One other thing I wanted to talk about, New Year's resolutions, I guess. I hate doing these things, but for the channel, some goals for the channel in 2024. We thankfully met my subscriber goal, which I kind of had for the end of the year, which was to hit 5,000 subscribers. We actually got to 5,500, and that's because, again, those Elijah Craig videos went off. They just went crazy. It was, totally unexpected on the view and subscriber count there. So we hit that goal, and that was great. But moving forward into 2024, what I really want to make happen is the first barrel pick for the channel. My goal is that once we hit 10,000 subscribers, to get barrel picks rolling, get more folks on the Patreon, and start getting that system together for Drums and Drams. That's something I've wanted to do since I started the Patreon, since I started the channel. I've always had dreams of doing my own barrel picks, and there are people that are willing to do them with the channel, but I want to make sure we're in a good spot that we can sell through a barrel or share it with another channel, something along those lines, and get some picks out for you guys. It's so fun to pick barrels, and I want to be able to do more of that. So 10,000 subs is my benchmark for making that happen. And I don't have a Patreon number benchmark for that. It would be nice to get 100 folks in the Patreon as well, but we'll see, how that develops throughout the year. In terms of another metric, I would say, for the channel in 2024, I would love to hit 25,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And I know that seems like a crazy goal, but the biggest factor in the channel's stunted growth over the years has been my consistency of putting content out, as life things and work things have gotten in the way. I've had kind of a crazy schedule. It's not going to stop being crazy, but it's going to be a little less crazy because things have settled down with my job in the Columbus Symphony. And if you guys have, watched the channel, watched live streams, I've been talking about getting tenure, going through that process, auditioning, just all those things that have kept me more irregular with my schedule when it comes to making content on the channel. So hitting 25,000 subs would be my goal for the end of the year. I do think it's possible, and I'm going to make it happen. And I wanted to state that, so that I have it on record of me saying that is what we're shooting for here. And I think consistency, which is kind of the last thing I wanted to say for my New Year's resolutions on the channel, consistency is my goal. My goal is to get out at least 2 videos per week, to live stream at least 3 times a month. I know sometimes my body needs a break. Speaking of which, this coming week, this Thursday night, no live stream. I've got to give my body a break after the marathon tasting I did the other night. A bunch of pop-up live streams throughout the holidays. I just have to have a little bit of a break, but that's okay. You're going to get so much content from me this week. I don't think you're really going to care. Might be too much content, and if it is, I apologize. A video every day is not going to be the norm. I can tell you that, but 2 videos a week, a live stream 3 times a month, those are the goals, and stay consistent with Scotch content on Sundays, because I want to develop that audience back into the channel. And so that's what we've got. All right, so let's move on now to tasting this George T. Stagg 2023. This is coming in at 135 proof. I've tasted this a few times already, and shout out to Matt Porter from ADHD Whiskey for hooking me up with the remainder of his media sample, which I've actually had quite a bit of. He sent me a super generous portion of this. Thank you, Matt, for doing that. It was totally unnecessary. I've tasted this on different live streams up to this point, and I need to save a little bit for a comparison video where I'm going to compare this to 2020, 2010, 09, and 08, all George T. Staggs that have been sent in by Toshi Bake, which is incredible. I can't wait to do that comparison. But today, we're just going to focus on this 2023. I've tasted it on live stream. Some folks know probably what I think of it, but if you haven't seen one of my tastings of this is going to kind of serve as my review in this weekly Dram series. Let me know if you like the idea of doing tastings in these weekly updates. So here we go. On the nose, let's check this thing out. Yeah, right away, the proof hits you right in the face. I mean, it's George T. Stagg. It's 135 proof. It's 15 years old. I think maybe a little over 15 years for this one. And you can tell that there are big flavors in the glass here. You do get some standard Buffalo Trace fare right away. There is a red fruit note in here, but there's actually a surprising amount of honey. And when you think of Buffalo Trace getting to this age, my benchmark for George T. Stagg is the 2020 version. I think it's a great balanced pour, a very balanced version of George T. Stagg. And the 2022 I thought was good, but it had this weird grassy note to it, and I thought it was a little overly hot. Now, people have really debated me on that, and I fully accept that I'm overly sensitive to grassiness. It was on the finish of the 2022. But anyways, this one has a surprising amount of honey on the nose, which kind of gives like almost a younger impression, I think. Yeah, you can actually still smell grain notes, honey, grain notes. These are things that I find on much younger Buffalo Trace products, not George T. Stagg. So the nose of this one, while it is big and bombastic, yes, there's some leather. It definitely shows age. I'm not going to say that it doesn't show age. It does, but it also shows youth. So it's kind of got both things going on, and that youth is just coming from this extra honey, corny kind of note that I'm not used to getting from such a highly aged product from Buffalo Trace. So anyways, let's taste it now on the palate. Cheers. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice whiskey. Very pop rocks on the palate. Very spicy cinnamon notes. Peppery. I would say more peppery actually than cinnamon. Yeah, and it does have pretty good development on the palate, but I guess more than I'm bothered by the honey and grain and corn note in here, the more I'm bothered by that, but I'm more bothered by the fact that there's not as much red fruit as I normally pick up on a George T. Stagg, even a Stagg Junior, which not now is just called Stagg, right? Even Stagg, batch 22A, I put up against this, and it put up a hell of a fight. I mean, it was closer than you'd want it to be, honestly. This just doesn't have that traditional, like the typical amount of that traditional note, which is dense, syrupy red fruit. That's George T. Stagg to me. It's dense, syrupy red fruit. It's peppery. It's super leather with that Buffalo Trace kind of leather, not that funky Knob Creek leather. This is just throwing me for a loop, but we got to do one more sip. Now, I'm not saying this is bad whiskey. Not at all. I just don't think, excuse me, geez, proof's hit me. I just don't think that George T. Stagg the last 2 years has been at the level that 2020 was, some of the earlier batches. I know we all look back in time at whiskey with kind of rose-colored glasses, but I mean, after 2021 happened and they rejected those George T. Stagg barrels, that should kind of throw up red flags for people, I think, and make us a little more curious about what's going on, or make us a little more particular when we taste it, you know? And I think for me, maybe that's coloring my interpretation of this just a little bit. Again, I am not saying this is bad whiskey. It's delicious. I would drink it any day of the week. But when you think about the rarity, the chase that goes on here, the secondary prices, which you may or may not want to factor in when you're reviewing something like this, I just don't quite think this is at the level that it should be. But that doesn't mean it's a bad whiskey. I just continue to find myself surprised by the honey, the grain, the corn notes in here, the kind of overbalanced ethanol to flavor. And I wish it just had more flavor concentration, which again is a criteria that I weigh heavily when I'm tasting whiskey. It's not that this doesn't have a lot of flavor. It does, but it's that when you think flavor versus ethanol, you want more flavor. If here's ethanol, you want more flavor to back that ethanol up, as opposed to feeling like the ethanol is its own layer and its own punch on the palate. So I think that's going to do it for this kind of review portion today. My advice for you is to let this sit out in the glass for a little while. I have tested that with this particular sample. It seems that if I make a really small pour in the glass, I let it sit for 15 minutes, it is immensely better than when I pour this thing fresh, swirl it around, and start nosing it. So, use that advice if you want. Otherwise, if you like proof, if you want your face ripped off, this is a great bottle to do it. And if I had a bottle of George T. Stagg 2023, I would love it. I would drink it. But for me, I don't think it's their best work on this. And I haven't really tasted any other BTAC this year. I heard the Eagle Rare 17 is incredible with the higher age statement. So if you have the choice, you might look elsewhere in the series besides this George T. Stagg. So that's going to do it for this. Let me know if you guys have tried this in the comment section. And last but not least, we're going to kind of close this episode by, it's an episode. I guess this isn't like an episode. It's a series. Yes, we're going to have episodes, the weekly Dram number 1. But we're going to close this out today with a couple of bottles I'm going to be looking for. The biggest bottle that I am keeping my eyes peeled for, even on secondary, as if the price comes down, is Old Forester 1924. This is the 10-year expression, the new 10-year expression in the Whiskey Row series. I think SRP is around $100, but secondary right now is like $350, and that is way too much for me to want to grab one of those. Even if that meant I got the first review out, $350 is crazy. So I hope it comes down on secondary. I don't know what the distribution is going to be like, or how many bottles are going to be in this release. If it's going to be a consistently released product, I'm just not sure. So keeping my eyes peeled for that. Let me know if you guys have the chance to try that 1924, but that is probably the most interesting bottle for me, especially considering the fact that on that last marathon live stream we did here on the channel to narrow down these bottles for Whiskey of the Year, the Old Forester 117 series bottled in bond 9-year was a total shocker in that tasting. Knocked out Jack Daniel's 12 for me. It was close, but for me, it just had a better balance of flavors, even at the lower proof. That Old Forester 9-year bottled in bond, so impressive. So when I see a 10-year coming out, man, I've got to get my hands on one of those. Other bottles right now on the way for the channel, Larceny Barrel Proof A124, which seemingly hit early. Haven't heard anything about Elijah Craig Barrel Proof A124, but I might need to lay low on Elijah Craig Barrel Proof for a little while. Also, I've been seeing posts about this Chris Stapleton collaboration with Harlan Wheatley and Buffalo Trace. I looked at the bottle pictures online, and it doesn't have the straight designation on it. It's just called a blended whiskey at 90 proof. That makes me hesitate a bit. I wonder what's going on with that blend. We'll be curious to find out. I want to get my hands on one. $40 looks like it's the price point, so it's affordable. 90 proof. I don't know. I guess my biggest comparison for that one is just going to be to standard Buffalo Trace. What are the differences? Do I think it's a better buy? So yeah, that's going to be interesting, but that's going to do it, guys. Again, let me know in the comments what you thought about Weekly Dram Episode 1, if you like this idea for a series. If you have any questions moving forward for the next episode, tastings you want to see, drop those in the comment section below. Thank you so much for the support. Happy New Year. I'm excited for the direction the channel is moving. Look out for those 5 videos this week for the top 5 whiskeys, and also look out for that Macallan 12-year Sherry Oak on Scotch Sunday. No live stream Thursday night. Cheers. See you guys soon. Let's wrap it up with this very good George T. Stagg 2023, but not great George T. Stagg 2023. Cheers, guys.